Well, I grew up in a segregated society. I grew up in Houston, and I never saw anything but the inside of a segregated school from the time I went to kindergarten or preschool to the time I graduated from college. But I'd never seen the kind of violence uh, that I was thrown into for the coverage. The civil rights movement changed me as a person. It changed me as a professional in so many ways, but without digressing into it. While Houston was segregated, and rather staunchly so, institutional segregation, and I'm sure there had to have been some violence around, I had never seen it. And I was also very fortunate that our neighborhood in the Heights Annex butted directly up against a neighborhood of African Americans. I don't have to tell you what it was called in those days. And I had at least some relationships with people of color. Not a lot because of segregation. But when I went to cover the civil rights movement, I couldn't believe what I was seeing almost from the first day. I couldn't believe the violence that was just barely beneath the surface. It was something, you could feel it. You could feel it. It was real. And then it would explode through a Klan rally, which now I think people sort of tend to shrug their shoulders at, or maybe even sort of scoff at. But a Klan rally in some parts of what came to be rightly known as the Deep South, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, some parts of northern Florida, some parts of Tennessee. The Klan rally was frightening, to say the least, even if you were not of color, even if you were not African American. That there was just so much that I didn't know. In Texas, we thought of ourselves as being more Westerners than Southerners. Looking back on it, maybe that was a preconditioning to sort of excuse what was happening in our town and our place, but that's probably a book to write sometime down the line. But the point being, when I got to Louisiana, I mentioned before, I mean, parts of Louisiana were extremely dangerous for any reporter to be into at all, and particularly after dark. I mean, I can recall being told by not one but two ministers, one in Louisiana and one in Mississippi, both of them pastors of churches, who very quietly said, "Don't be here after dark." And they were trying to be helpful. So it was impossible to cover the civil rights movement and come from where I had come and not be mightily influenced by it, and I was.